Hi, everybody. Hello, welcome. Welcome. This is one of our last speakers for the session in the winter semester. First, I'll start with some general announcements, and then I'll introduce our speaker. So next Thursday, we have a lecture, Uneven Development and Rural Decline, The Other Side of Japan's Economic Miracle by Tomoyuki Sasaki, and it will be in 110 on the first floor. This one, this next event next week is in person only, so we will not have a Zoom option for those of you who are coming on Zoom. We have a couple films to tell you about. The first one is tonight. There's a screening of Inogami, and it's a film about a newcomer in a rural village who falls in love with a local paper maker. So that should be fun. Next Thursday, there is the last film of the series, and that's Kamikaze Taxi, a widely known film, a very widely hailed film, so don't miss that. That's 7 o'clock at State Theater. You can get all your tickets at Marquee Arts, and also check the events page if you want more information. For those of you who are attending on Zoom today, the webcams and the microphones are muted for all Zoom attendees. So if you want to communicate with us, please use the Q&A function to let us know what you need, and also to submit any questions that you have. Our presenter will be able to entertain questions around 1 to 1:30, so that'll be the time when we'll have a Q&A. So if you want to post questions, we'll read those out here. The live transcription feature is enabled, and if you want to turn it off, you need to go to your little bar at the bottom and turn off the closed caption. All right, our speaker today is a friend to us all. She has been with us for a couple years as a postdoc scholar, and she has recently welcomed a new family member. So welcome to her and her new baby, and her son, and her husband. She has a PhD and an MA in anthropology from University of Hawai. And she specializes in medical and cultural anthropology, and her emphasis is embodied experiences of menstruation in contemporary Japan. She has an emphasis on the embodied experience, and also about the various intersecting forces that frame that experience, which includes materials from Japanese studies, gender studies, history, science and technology, of course, medical anthropology. She's done extensive ethnographic research in Tokyo on young women's experiences, perceptions, education of menstruation, and also menstrual products that are commercially available. She has traced menstrual taboos in an article from Sacred to Secret, tracing changes in views of menstruation, and that's published in an open access journal if you want to read it. Currently, Maura is researching the formation of layperson and medical understanding of conditions that fall under the umbrella of menstrual irregularity. That includes a huge wide swath of conditions, including endometriosis, amenorrhea, and severe dysmenorrhea. She's interested in media representations of premenstrual syndrome, and also the impact of personal health history on smartphone apps tracking menstrual cycles. So please join me in welcoming Maura Stephens-Chu.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for joining me for my talk today. It's nice to be back up on stage to talk a bit more about my research. All right, so the title of my talk today is Techno-Menses, Period Products and FemTech
in Japan. And as you'll see, I'll be focusing on menstrual products as well as menstrual cycle tracking apps that are used in Japan. So in her book, Seizing the Means of Reproduction, Michelle Murphy explores the history and politics of reproductive technologies of the women's health movement in the 70s and 80s in the United States. So she focuses on pap smears, vaginal self-exams, and menstrual extraction and menstrual regulation devices. And she kind of explains her choice to focus on these technologies rather than so-called high-tech ones that are usually invoked by the term techno-science. She writes that the less glamorous and simpler technologies have vitally touched a vastly greater number of people and have provided crucial sites for the emergence of neoliberal governmentalities, for the industrialization of medicine, and for the entanglement of sexed and raced living being with capitalism. And so I think by looking at period products, cycle tracking apps, and other FemTech, we can also, similarly in the context of Japan, examine how neoliberal governmentalities, the privatization of healthcare, the sort of self-responsibilization of health, those kinds of things are emerging in these practices and products. And while I wouldn't necessarily classify menstrual products as a simple technology, as I'll show you later, we can still learn a lot from this perspective. Commercial period products, especially napkins or pads in Japan, are used by millions of women both in the country and around the world. The menstrual product industry in the US context was largely unregulated until I want to say 1980 toxic shock syndrome outbreak and scandal, after which the FDA did impose some regulations, but still kind of relies on product testing by manufacturers themselves. Similarly, in Japan, these products are regulated by the Japan Hygiene Products Industry Association, which is composed of corporations that produce not only menstrual products, but also other kind of like personal hygiene goods like cotton swabs, first aid bandages, diapers, face masks, and so on. So in this way, there's a relatively hands-off approach in terms of regulations. It's largely industry-driven, and so consumers are expected to make their own informed choices for their safety and health. And of course, on the apps side of things, more and more smartphones, apps, social media are becoming just a regular part of our lives. And with FemTech, as I'll get into in more detail in a bit, even women's health is digitized. So questions of big data use, of privacy arise, questions about misinformation on social media as well come up when these things are kind of spreading and becoming more common. And so in this way, I want to investigate then how people use these kinds of apps and technologies, what information they provide, how they're designed, and so on. So I'll give a bit more background to my research, why I want to study these things, how I came about to study them, as well as the methods that I used for the analysis that I'll be presenting today. So I'll be kind of taking a look at menstrual products in Japan themselves, kind of giving an argument as to why they should be considered as technologies. This will be including looking at industry definitions and manufacturing standards, as well as a qualitative analysis of menstrual product company websites. And then I'll also be giving a kind of case study overview of one menstrual cycle tracking app in particular called La Lune. And then kind of wrapping up with where I kind of want to take this research next, as well as hopefully perhaps getting some feedback and suggestions from y'all as well. So what is FemTech? Let's start here. This was a term that was originally coined about 9-10 years ago in 2016 by Ida Teen, who is a co-founder of Clue, a company with a relatively well-known menstrual cycle tracking app of the same name that's used by millions of people worldwide. She decided to kind of coin this term in order to better market such software apps and products for women's health. So in essence, FemTech is kind of like a neologism of female and technology. So it's focused on women's health. So this can include a wide swath of things, from menstruation and menstrual cycles, can be about sexual health, can be related to fertility or infertility treatments, pregnancy and childbirth, and lactation or human milk production. So the technologies that might fall under the umbrella of FemTech are equally as varied and broad. It can be, kind of software or online services. So again, kind of like smartphone apps like I'll be talking about today. Telemedicine can be a form of FemTech if it's specializing in women's health issues. And additionally, quote unquote hardware or tangible material objects like digital thermometers or breast pumps, and as I'll be focusing on today as well, menstrual products. As a medical anthropologist, I got really interested in women's health in general. And in this talk, just as a quick pause caveat, I discussed menstruation and used the term women. My ethnographic research in Japan did focus on cisgender women, although I hope to broaden that. Additionally, these menstrual product companies and apps that I'll be highlighting today, for the most part, also use the term women when talking about their potential consumers. This is potentially in contrast with other apps or companies like Clue or Flow that might use slightly more inclusive language, like just referring to people with cycles, for instance. So I don't mean to necessarily conflate women and menstruation, but my research so far is kind of limited to cisgender women. So women who are assigned female at birth based on biological characteristics. So within women's health and medical anthropology, there is a whole lot of research on things like fertility, infertility, pregnancy, childbirth, but there wasn't too much about menstruation, which stood out to me, and I wanted to study it more. And so I combined that with my interest in Japanese culture as well. And with menstruation, you can kind of study a whole lot of things. So Chris Boble, in the introduction to the Handbook of Critical Menstruation Studies, talks about using menstruation as a unit of analysis can be a gateway to studying things like biology, society, culture, religion, politics, and history. So I also kind of try and take a holistic approach to this study by combining all of these things to see what do people think about menstruation? What's its social, cultural significance? How does that affect individuals' health, their own perceptions of their body? How and why does it relate to different kind of life stages, such as motherhood? In Japan in particular, menstruation is not very present in public discourse for the most part, except for maybe some menstrual product ads. So I wanted to talk to folks about why that might be the case. And here is, if anybody's taken a class with me, they've probably seen this, but this is an excerpt from a manga, a Japanese comic called Sayari-chan, or like Ms. Period. So it features a sort of anthropomorphic, ugly, cute character, Sayari-chan, here in the middle of this bottom panel. So she represents your period. And so this panel or this page is showcasing a husband and wife. The husband had asked, what's for dinner? The wife said, oh, I made curry. And he's like, we just had curry. Why'd you make it again? And she's like, well, I don't know. Why don't you make dinner if you don't like what I made? And he's just like, are you on your period or something? You're so irritable. And then Sari-chan gives him a sari punch right to his face. So this is quite a lighthearted depiction, perhaps representing the wife's sort of like own inner thoughts. And so the comic covers a whole bunch of different stuff. And even in the past few years, there's been some like product tie-ins with Sari-chan, like pins and stuff like that, pop-up shop things. But it's one of the kind of few representations of menstruation in public discourse in Japan. But it's a fun manga if you ever want to read it. So back in 2018, I conducted ethnographic research on young women's experiences in education surrounding menstruation. So I interviewed 23 female university students in the Tokyo area. I also did participant observation by engaging in different club and social activities on campus at Techno-Menses University, which is a national women's university in Tokyo. I also did some interviews and or email correspondence with different representatives of various menstrual product companies in Japan, ranging from large corporations to smaller companies and even companies that sell sort of alternative menstrual products like reusable organic cotton cloth napkins. And for a while now, I've also been kind of keeping tabs on and analyzing different menstrual product commercials, advertising, product names, and so on. So my question for this kind of research today and to all of you is, are period products FemTech? Are they a technology? And I would say yes. But my answer here, my argument is not new. For instance, Shara Vostral in 2008 book, Under Wraps, which looks at the sort of history of menstrual products, she argues that these products are indeed technologies. She says that women's wants, uses, and desires shape the form and delivery of menstrual hygiene technologies, just as the technologies influence women's behavior and therefore societal attitudes about women and being a woman. So these products are designed, created, sold, not in a culture-free vacuum. Both consumer desires as well as kind of social and cultural presumptions kind of influence that. She also asks, what dangers are overlooked when a technology becomes ubiquitous and naturalized? Because menstrual products, for a lot of us, are just kind of innocuous utilitarian items. We maybe take for granted all of the sophisticated materials and techniques that go into their manufacture and design. So it might be kind of important to unwrap, to unpack that and kind of figure out, the history and reasons behind why menstrual products are the way they are, how they're used and why, how people select them and why. And so that is also one thing that I have focused on in my research, both with my ethnographic research and my research today, is how do menstrual products and their advertising, how does that reflect and potentially reinforce societal attitudes towards menstruation? And additionally, in a previous talk, I discussed how menstrual products act as a potential mediator between the user and their body and their menstrual blood, and how that then in turn kind of affects their embodied experiences of menstruation and how they see themselves and understand menstruation. So here, for example, you have a product that's Sophie brand from the Unicharm Corporation. They say it's so cute, it blends in with other accessories and doesn't look like a menstrual product, so it's easy to carry around. So here is like a purse that's contents have been spilled out, and here are the pads with like a sort of floral printed wrapper. So as I was saying earlier, menstruation in Japan is kind of rarely discussed. It's sort of overshadowed by this sort of cultural imperative to conceal it, both discursively in conversation as well as literally. So this kind of reflects that this product is marketed based on its ease of disguise or concealing the product itself as a menstrual product. So sort of reflecting perhaps what consumers potentially want. They want to conceal products or menstruation. And it could also be sort of reinforcing that desire or perhaps that pressure to conceal. Conversely, when I was looking at companies that sold reusable organic cotton cloth napkins, I found this theme running through the different companies of the products giving women the chance to actually interact directly with their periods and their bodies, and kind of positioning that as a positive opportunity for better understanding and appreciating their bodies. Because with reusable cloth napkins, you have to wash them to reuse them. So in that sense, you can't really avoid coming into direct contact with your menstrual blood, which is quite different from disposable napkins. And additionally, the terminology they used often kind of juxtaposed their cloth napkins to kind of the conventional disposable napkins. And many companies refer to the disposable napkins as plastic napkins, which really caught my attention as well. And indeed, a lot of the materials are like polymers and other plastic, I guess, things, which we'll take a look at. Alrighty. And the reason why I am wanting to explore menstrual cycle tracking apps more is that they came up in my interviews with the college students. About a third of my interviewees at the time, so this was like over 5 years ago, used apps, and I can imagine that that number has potentially increased. So I want to highlight one interviewee's experience with her menstrual cycle tracking apps to kind of showcase a little snapshot of why people might use them and how they're used. So Mai, as I call her in my research, uses an app called Karada no Chikara, so like power of the body, to record her period. Sometimes she also records her menstrual flow, the amount of blood each day, the blood color, her weight, and her basal body temperature, which is your temperature upon waking. And she actually uses a specific digital thermometer that's connected to the app, so it uploads the temperature reading directly to the app from the thermometer. She tracks her cycle because it's very irregular, coming about every month and a half or even longer. At our interview, she pulled up the app on her phone and showed me like her cycle recordings, which included one that was 49 days, then 100 days, then 25 days, then 49 days again. And while she only intermittently records things like her weight and the color of her menstrual blood, she has been diligently recording her basal body temp, because a friend told her that that can help predict one's menstrual cycle. That is, so you might know when your period is coming next. She also visited a gynecologist, which is kind of rare among young women who are not pregnant or trying to conceive. And the doctor also instructed her to record her temp for a couple of months and then come back for a follow-up visit. She also uses a popular menstrual cycle tracking app in Japan called Luna Luna. She said she learns information from articles in the app. She said that, if you don't have a good cycle, that is a regular cycle, then you might not have babies in the future. That's a risk. Also, she continued, on the app, it tells you that Well, I don't listen to like everything they say, but usually it's the kind of things like during this period you should avoid certain foods, like too much fatty foods. These kinds of articles will tell you that, so I guess I kind of listen to that. They always say like the day after your period is over and you work out, then you're more active and it's easier for you to lose weight. I don't necessarily listen to them, I'm so lazy. That's what it usually says when your period is over. It's a good time for you to go jogging or something. And then whenever you're on your period, it tells you, you know, stay steady right now, stay calm, maybe grab a nice hot glass of tea or something. So here I learned that there are like little like info blurbs or even like articles that come up inside the app. And so I got really interested in, okay, well, what kinds of things are people learning from those apps versus like their sort of formal education in schools or other avenues like from friends or from mothers. I also learned from her that she wanted to be able to predict her cycles. They were irregular, and that can be really inconvenient for people if your period comes unexpectedly. I also learned that you can link up other tech with it, which is really interesting. Basal body temp is kind of ubiquitous when it comes to menstrual cycle tracking and menstrual cycle tracking apps. I'll talk a bit more about the significance of that later. Also, it was interesting how she mentioned it gave sort of like dieting advice as well as general like exercise and health advice, and that also is quite common among these apps too. So let's get into the details for my analysis for today. So again, this is a qualitative analysis of the sort of 3 big menstrual product companies in Japan, as well as a case study of one menstrual cycle tracking app. So the big companies in Japan that sell menstrual products include Kao, which has the brand Laurier, Unicharm, which has the brand Sophie and LD, and then Dial, which has the brand Edisu. So you can kind of think of these corporations as akin to like Procter & Gamble or Unilever, in that they kind of provide a whole huge range of goods that they also do like transnational business too. Let's see, Cowell or Laurier, that brand has over 14 different product lines, and then within each line there's a whole range of products themselves, depending on like the length of the product. Does it have wings or not? Does it have scent or not? Does it use organic cotton or not? Is it for like light days or overnight or heavy days? Unicharm has over 20 product lines, and Dial has 8 product lines. So counting all those gets you to like over 200 different products, many of which are just widely available in stores, or you can also order them online, as is becoming more popular nowadays. And so with this kind of abundance of products, how do people choose what to use? And so I asked companies about the industry. And Dial, for instance, said that the performance of Japanese menstrual products is at an extremely high level. So rather than reducing the chance of leaks, we predict that we are shifting into an era in which consumers choose based on preference or taste from design and fragrances. So this quote does kind of really show the state of the market in Japan, that the majority of napkins do an acceptable, if not exceptional, job at absorbing menstrual blood. And so extra features might attract new consumers, like stylish packaging, scents, celebrity endorsements, and so on. But the bottom line really is absorbency and making sure that there are no leaks of menstrual blood, so that, you know, not just absorbency, but if the pad, you know, stays in place for a long time. It doesn't like shift or scrunch up or otherwise move around to cause leaks. And so I argue that companies still highlight these aspects of their products through so-called scientific and technologized presentations, which might, you know, kind of presume the consumer to be like a rational potential user who's looking for, the best performance capabilities. According to the Pharmaceutical Affairs Law in Japan, menstrual napkins are categorized as quasi-drugs, iyaku-bugaihin. Tampons are medical equipment, and then panty liners and reusable cloth napkins are kind of under the category of general merchandise. I mentioned the Japan Hygiene Products Industry Association earlier. They have various documents available for the public to peruse. For instance, the Japanese specifications of sanitary napkin materials, the English translation of which is 130 pages, as well as the standards for marketing approval of sanitary napkins, which is 21 pages in the English translation. So that first document lists common materials used in the manufacturing of menstrual napkins sold in Japan. For example, acetate fiber, which they describe as a cellulose fiber obtained by partially saponifying acetylated cellulose, and ionomer resin, which is a copolymer resin partially cross-linked with sodium hydroxide or zinc oxide obtained by copolymerizing ethylene and acrylic acid or ethylene and methacrylic acid. So this is definitely something you can't really replicate at home. You can make your own cloth napkins, you can cut and sew them, or you can buy them pre-made. But both the scale and techniques used to make your everyday pads is quite complex and sophisticated. This document also lists 21 different tests to be performed on the materials to be used in the manufacture of pads. This includes things like liquid chromatography, saponification value determination, don't ask me what that means, and heavy metals limit test. So those are just 3 of the 21 tests that manufacturers should perform on any potential materials to be used in the manufacture of menstrual pads. Additionally, that second document, the shorter one, the Standards for Marketing Approval of Sanitary Napkins, provides testing instructions for the assembled product, including schematics for testing devices as shown here. So this is schematics for an adhesion test device. So things like whether or not it has color, because technically menstrual pads are supposed to be white, they're supposed to be colorless. Whether there's like any, what's the word I'm looking for? Detectable like acidity or alkalinity, fluorescence, water absorption and exudation, formaldehyde, and adhesion. So like how well the adhesive on the product works should be tested on the product. So for example, for the adhesion test, the following instructions are provided. And this is just for method 1. They have a method 2 as well. So it says, attach a piece of cotton cloth onto a glass board of the adhesion test device, previously warmed to 30 or 31 degrees Celsius. Lay the pre-treated sample flat, removing the material that protects the fixation material on the cotton cloth with the adhesive side down, and clip the pulling tab with a pulling clip. Place a 750-gram weight for attachment approximately in the center of the sample, and allow the sample to attach to the cotton cloth for 1 minute. Remove the weight for attachment. Place a 225-gram weight for pulling on the sample. Attach a 250-gram load to the pulling string and pull immediately. The test is successful if the sample is not dislocated within 1 minute. The document also categorizes the various components, and they do use the term components, of a menstrual napkin. In particular, the surface material, the absorbent material, and the leak protection material are most often referred to by the product companies, like on the websites when marketing the product. So the surface is kind of like the name implies. It's the material that's on the surface of the pad that touches your body directly. And then within the pad, there's absorbent material as well, potentially leak protection material, which might be slightly different from absorbent material. So let's get into some examples of what I'm talking about with the sort of technologization representations of period products. Overall, I found several different kind of like themes or patterns in my qualitative analysis. This includes the use of diagrams, cross-sections, and close-ups, as well as little videos or images of so-called experiments, and neologisms, so like kind of combined new made-up words and technical terms of the features of the pad or its materials or something like that. So for example, diagrams are often sort of graphical representations of the product rather than a direct photo of it. It often includes like arrows and labels of the different parts or features of the pad. And in many cases, it has this, you see this kind of grid pattern in the center, this sort of like 3D topography reminiscent kind of style. That is quite common in representations, visual representations of the pads. So this one, for instance, I think this is a Dio product. It talks about how it has like side gathers to help prevent leaks on the sides of the pad. It has a crescent moon blocker in the front to prevent leaks coming out the front of the pad, as well as this very padded center to absorb and retain menstrual blood for absorption and for comfort. Here's another example. I think this one is Sophie brand. Again, you have this like sort of 3D grid pattern to emphasize the texture and, well, the three-dimensionality of the product. This one, instead of a crescent moon, it has a star-shaped guard on the front. And here is a diagram of the parts of a tampon sold by Sophie. Sophie is the only major Japanese company that sells and makes tampons in Japan. They're not super popular tampons. I think roughly 90% of menstruators use pads exclusively. But here again, you have this sort of diagram with different labels of the various parts of the product. All right, cross sections. And so these different themes, patterns aren't mutually exclusive. So for example, you might consider this image on the left to be a diagram of sort. It shows the product and it has different like labels for the different parts. But it's a cross-section illustration of the product. So here, this is skin. This is the absorbent material. And then this is your underwear. And so this particular product was designed to move better with your body to prevent the pad from like slipping and causing leaks. So there's like a space in between the layers of the pad that it's meant to move with your body as you're walking around and stuff. And then this one is also a cross section of a pad kind of showing the side gather meant to protect against leaks from the side. So this is not something you would actually see if you looked at the actual product, but it's meant to represent how it's made and how it's effective. And one more cross-section / diagram. I think this is for potentially a panty liner. So here you have liquid going down into the absorbent material, which is comprised of polymers. Those little dots are meant to represent the polymers of the material. And again, overlapping with some of those cross sections, we have close-ups. So here we have a sort of almost like microscope view of the material, the non-woven fabric used for Laurier's products, which they do label just explicitly as a tech, as a technology. So you've got this non-woven fabric, really, really zoomed in. Again, something you wouldn't actually see looking at the product if you had it in your hand. And additionally, a sort of more replicable close-up of the surface of the pad to show its texture. Here's another close-up / cross-section. So this is an overnight pad, and so this is meant to show it says the sort of secret of its thickness. It has like a construction of 2 layers, which is meant to help with like absorption and retention of menstrual blood. Here are some more quote-unquote close-ups, more sort of imaginative in a sense, or perhaps microscopic. I'm not actually sure if you can see like if smell particles like with a microscope, if that's a thing, but these are meant to represent odor and the either what this one is called a odor masking system for Sophie Chiota panty liners. So here the fragrance is masking odor. And then here on the right is a panty liner that has silver ions with antibacterial properties that is also meant to reduce odor. And again, you have these like smell particles and little scent particles representing how the product works. And then experiments. This is often something that's included in like video commercials for pads and other products. I mean, you probably have seen, you know, the blue liquid poured on the pad or the tampon, but these are quite common as well, and they use, you know, the term jikken, or like experiments, tests, to compare and show how the product works, particularly when it comes to absorption. And so you have comparisons, time lapses, those things to show the product in action. But I do find the use of the term jikken to be really interesting and to kind of really connect how the product works to science and technology. Right, so there's a lot of like coined terms to perhaps help the product kind of like stand out, that, you know, it has this unique feature which we call blah, blah, blah. It is kind of jargony or a made-up term. I wrote here pseudoscientific, not in the sense that it's based on like bad or fake science, but just that it's meant to sound sciencey as a sort of marketing technique. And they really get into detail with the materials, the different layers of the product and its components and features. So for instance, perusing those 3 companies' websites, you find a lot of different terms related to, like the, as I was saying earlier, the absorption and leak protection materials. So it might be, you know, something sheet. So you have Q-Con sheet, absorbing and drying sheet, full speed absorption sheet, all over breathability sheet, silver ion deodorizing sheet. This one I had trouble translating, but low stimulus touch waffle sheet, soft touch sheet, urusara sheet, which I also had trouble translating. I think it's meant to refer to like uruoi and sarasara, so moisturizing and like silkiness, and antibacterial sheet. All these different terms for different products. And similarly, they do directly talk about the polymers used for the products, so high absorbency polymer, super absorbent polymer, slide fit absorbent material, 3D fit absorbent material, and so on. So here again, you kind of see this proliferation of this sort of scientific, technologized visuals and text to sell the products to potential consumers. All right. So kind of switching gears a little bit to look at the apps, the other menstrual FemTech that I wanted to talk about today. So these apps in Japanese are often labeled as like searihi apuri, so like period day apps, or searihi yosoku apuri. So yosoku is like prediction or estimating. So you generally input data and it helps you predict like when your next period will come. They might also be called like searihi and hairanbi yosoku apuri, so looking at ovulation dates as well. So about Laloon, the case study for today. It is currently operated by a company called Medley, which provides HR platforms and health treatment platforms. This company was founded in 2009, but it only acquired Laloon in early 2024. And their kind of tagline or motto is creating the future of medical healthcare. The app itself was originally launched in 2010 by a company called A-Team Wellness, Inc. On the App Store, it has a rating of 4.4 out of 5 with over 40,000 ratings. It has over 1 million downloads on like the Android store or Google Play. And then in 2021 on Google Play, it was ranked #1 in sales for period management apps. And according to the company, they have over 8 million registered users. And the app, Laloon, its own motto is giving peace of mind to all women. They say on their website that Laloon, which is a period and ovulation day prediction app, offers extensive support for managing women's cycles, trying to conceive, and health maintenance. So here I highlighted the term ninkatsu. So in Japan and Japanese, there's often a lot of like nani nani katsu, like shukatsu refers to like job hunting activities, konkatsu is like marriage hunting, and then you also have ninkatsu, so short for like ninshin katsudo, so like things you do to try to get pregnant, like you're aiming to conceive. And this is a kind of also an exploding industry in Japan too. But there are 3 modes in the app depending on what you want to use it for. So there's the sort of standard cycle management where you're just wanting to track and predict your menstrual cycles and ovulation days. Then there's like the ninkatsu mode where you're aiming to try and get pregnant. And then they have a mode for when you are pregnant. So here we can kind of already see potential reasons for using the app. The company also says that its user base is mainly women in their 20s and 30s, which also makes sense if a big part of the app is about ninkatsu, about trying to conceive. They provide different like profiles or personas, as they call, of their users, depending and each one aligns with each of those 3 modes. So this first one, the simple cycle tracking mode, the description says that she's 25 years old, she's in a committed relationship, she's not thinking of marriage yet, but she wants to manage her menstrual cycles. She loves bargains and uses coupons often. These personas were found on the part of the website that's meant for potential advertisers and businesses that want to collaborate with the app. This middle persona, she's 30 years old. She's been married for a year and trying for a baby for 3 months. When first starting ninkatsu, there was a lot she didn't know, so she's been gathering info on the internet. And she's starting to focus more on having a balanced diet, and she's doing hot yoga. Then this last one, the pregnancy mode person, she's 32, she's 9 months pregnant. She does have a career, but she's currently on maternity leave. She uses the app and checks the web daily to get information on her baby as childbirth approaches. And she's challenging herself to get more into cooking, which she didn't really have time for when she was working. So again, this is kind of geared towards potential advertisers to kind of see what different market segments there might be. So some features of the app. The home screen, it's not as big as I'd like. The home screen, at a glance, you can see the prediction for when your next period will start, prediction for your ovulation date, as well as the recommended day for trying to conceive based on your ovulation date, which, again, I am not well versed in ninkatsu terms and stuff, but they call it nakayoshi-hi. With nakayoshi is like getting to being on good terms, being close with someone, which I thought was an interesting euphemism for, having sexual intercourse to try to conceive. You can also, they have little barometers here for your body condition, including, let's see, what was it? Your mood, your diet, and your skin. And then also it has a little thing here that shows briefly your chances for conception on the day that you're viewing it. They provide cycle reports. So here you've got little summaries and blurbs about each of your cycles once it's complete. Provides information about, again, ovulation, your hormones, and this is based on what you input in terms of when you get your period, your basal body temp, and other things. Again, they have a basal body temp chart that shows the data that you input, and again, you can connect to other devices like actual digital thermometers to upload automatically. And the reason the basal body temp chart is so ubiquitous with these apps is, again, the kind of emphasis on trying to conceive, but also in Japan, for example, Sandberg and her ethnographic research of unmarried young adult women in Tokyo, looking at their contraceptive practices, she found that condoms are pretty commonly used, but also the withdrawal method and the ogino method, or rhythm method. So folks who don't want to conceive might also be tracking their basal body temp to find out when they're ovulating so that they can either practice temporary abstinence or withdrawal if they're in a sort of danger zone time. They have a weight and BMI chart, so you can input that as well. As mentioned about my interviewee earlier, that these apps can provide guidance about best ways in terms of diet and exercise and health maintenance, depending on where you are in your cycle. They have a calendar, which kind of provides a different view of your most recent period, your upcoming period, and ovulation date. You can input your day's data, what they call karada memo, or body memos. They say you can also kind of use it like a diary for the day, since you can just input comments as well. But you can record info related to your period and ovulation, your temp, your weight, your mood as well. It's not really showing up very well on this, but there's supposed to be little smiley face images here. I don't know why they're not showing up super well. That you can share your mood related to potential hormone changes. They have discussion boards, which I've labeled discussion boards, but the actual term in the app is nayami sodan. So getting advice about your worries or troubles. And so it's categorized based on age range, hobbies, your life stage, perhaps whether you're trying to conceive or not, and lifestyle. And you can talk directly with other users of the app in different discussion threads. They also have what they call a ninkatsu kyokasho, or trying to conceive textbook, which has information and instructions and advice from specialist doctors and counselors for how to get pregnant when you want to get pregnant. And they also have what they call a premium store or discount shop for premium users of the app. So it gives coupons and discounts for major, consumer brands in Japan. So related to that, as well as those earlier profiles meant for advertisers, in the app, there's a free version and premium versions. There are different ads that come up in the app.
So for example, after you input stuff in your body memos for the day, there's a pop-up ad potentially that comes up. On your home screen, there are links to like different articles as well as ads. And so these types of ads might also be sort of what might be called like tie-ins or advertorials. You see this in like print magazines as well, where it kind of looks like an article, but it's just more of like an endorsement of a particular product. There are also like banner ads on the calendar screen and stuff like that too. So this brings up the question of how users' data is collected and shared. So according to the privacy policy of La Lune, they don't share user data without explicit consent from users. They do collect information like when you register, such as your name, contact info. The app might share location information, and so they use this for targeted ads, based on your location, age, your purchase history within the app, and so on. They also use it for improving the app for their own research and reports and things like that. They have the option of working with advertisers or other companies to distribute like surveys to users. So again, depending on your own like profile, like age, whether you're in like Ninkatsu mode or not, you might get offered to take a survey, which then La Lune collects the data from that, analyzes it, and then gives the report to the company. So in that respect, the third-party company doesn't have direct access to user data. They get that kind of compiled report from La Lune, which does use user information in a sense. And so other big apps like Clue and Flow also have used user data with consent to get more information about, for instance, like the effect of COVID-19 on people's menstrual cycles and things like that. And so other apps in other countries might have similar kind of research activities too. So in terms of next steps, future directions, today what I've been sharing with you is sort of like an exploratory pilot study where I'm just kind of testing the waters in these topics, but I'm very motivated to take this research further. This includes conducting a quantitative content analysis using Atlas TI or similar content analysis software of menstrual product company websites and the apps. I also want to, I had a case study of one app which I think is representative of many of the Japan-based apps. I wanted to select an app that was developed in Japan for Japanese users, even though other apps have like Japanese language versions of them, like Flow and Clue. It's kind of hard to figure out, of the millions of users of Clue, for instance, how many are Japanese users. I have to kind of figure out how to get that data if possible. But I want to do some transnational comparisons with apps from different countries and how they collect information, what information, how the app is designed, and so on. I also want to take a closer look at privacy laws and regulations in Japan, like how privacy policies and use of big data has developed over the years in Japan is something that I need to inform myself on. And taking a look at the ninkatsu industry, other products, services related to that. Japan is kind of known for a lot of public discourse, both in media and politics, regarding its declining birth rate and shrinking population. So there have been a lot of policies and incentives for married couples in particular to have more children. And people are getting married and having children later in life. So that might also explain the sort of increase in, say, fertility treatment clinics, since age might be a factor in issues with trying to conceive. This industry, I know, is going to be humongous. I mean, in the US, as someone who's experienced pregnancy and childbirth, it is overwhelming the amount of information, services, products there are. So I'm kind of apprehensive about getting into that, but also quite excited and fascinated with it. And I want to take a look at other FemTech and kind of compare how they're marketed and designed compared to these cycle tracking apps and menstrual products. So this might include thermometers, again, fertility treatments. And actually, Sophie brand has just come out with, relatively recently, these panty liners that have ovulation test strips built into them. So that's really interesting, and again, kind of intersecting with period products and ninkatsu products as well. So I'm excited to explore these topics further, and I'm also happy to hear your thoughts and questions. And I thank you all for listening in and joining us today. I think you have a question? Yeah.
Hello. So we're going to launch the Q&A section. So if you have a question, please speak into the microphone, please, so that people on Zoom can hear. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for an interesting talk. My question is about the user data and consent, because you mentioned that the company claims to not use it without explicit consent, and so I'm curious, like, how they get that explicit consent, at what point in their, like, as the user is using the app, because I feel like certain apps, you sort of consent at the beginning, no one really reads those users' terms and agreements, and you may have consented to something. If you were given an opportunity to think about it, you may not later, right? So I'm curious how Laloon is like kind of framing consent and like its user data, because I also think that in Japan, a lot of apps or a lot of users are not as conscious about their privacy and user data access by different companies. I don't really see a lot of chatter about it, like on Twitter or like other platforms compared to the US, especially surrounding cycle tracking apps. And so I'm curious, like, what you've sort of discovered in that area too.
Yes, great question. So it is most definitely, in terms of consent, that terms of service agreement that pops up when you first start using a service or app. You don't necessarily need to like officially register or create an account. You can just kind of use it. But if you say want to save your data to transfer it to like other devices, then you'll need to be making an account. But for using the app, yeah, it's the terms of service agreement, which one would presume has a link to their privacy policy, which is not like super duper long. But you know, it does cover a lot of potential technical terms and things, although it does explain how and why and what data they do use for their own like internal purposes. And so, and then like other companies, they might send like an email update when they've changed their privacy policy. But yeah, perhaps this kind of research could be supplemented with ethnographic interviews of users to see their experience and understanding with privacy and data use. So that would be interesting. I think as well, this is something I need to look into more, but in terms of the US and issues of privacy and data with menstrual cycle tracking apps, that has come up in terms of, for instance, in particular related to like potential pregnancy and accessing or seeking abortions, which is a highly politicized and legal quagmire in the United States. But that is not really the case in Japan, where abortion legally is quite accessible as compared to the US. So perhaps there just aren't similar concerns in that regard. But the sort of history of like consumer movements and protections in Japan is also kind of fraught with issues. And so it might be interesting to delve further and connect that to I guess conversations and ideas about consumer rights and privacy. But yeah, thank you for your questions.
All right, we have a question from an online user. This is Matthias Reed, and he or she asks, are FemTech products in Japan largely manufactured domestically or in other nations? And follow-up, is this a concern for consumers? Is domestic manufacturing a selling point for the manufacturers?
Oh, that's a good question. Thank you, Matthias. I think for the really big corporations like Cowell or Unicharm, their actual manufacturing facilities might be overseas. They also, as transnational corporations, sell their products to other markets like in Southeast Asia or South Asia in particular. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to double check about those larger corporations and where those facilities are located. For the smaller companies, domestic manufacturing is definitely a selling point. Like there is a company called Natura Moon, which does make disposable menstrual products, but is a much kind of smaller scale company. They focus on like organic and high quality materials. And then also especially the cloth napkin companies also tout on their websites their domestic manufacturing, including like photos of the facilities and who makes them and what like safety and hygiene procedures go into it. So that definitely can be a big selling point in terms of domestic versus overseas manufacturing.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thanks. I'm very interested in hearing more about the concept of FemTech and what you want to do with that concept. Like when you were showing us all of the diagrams,
Yes.
I was wondering if you think that there is something that feminine products, let's just put that as a category, are more technologized than other ones.
Right.
Or I was kind of suspicious that maybe those kinds of diagrams, you can see them for lots of various kinds of products, like the AG silver ions. I remember that I was using a deodorant that was actually marketed to men that said that AG ions technology and all this stuff, and like hair growth stuff. Like there's always these little diagrams of the hairs like growing and stuff like that. So are feminine products more technologized, or do you think that you're going into like a wider world of maybe like body products being technologized? Yeah. Sorry, that's
that is a good question. Yeah, so like body products or like personal care products, as they might be called, like in stores and online. I do want to, expand that comparison to see, is there a market difference? My kind of informal observation would be kind of like you were suggesting, that perhaps this kind of presentation style might be common among different personal care products, and that these pad products are just kind of following that trend. I think it's a well-established like advertising tactic to kind of draw upon like science and authority to sell products. And so I'd have to, again, kind of expand my like data set to include other types of products as well. So that's a plan for the future. But yeah, thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up? I wanted to offer that maybe FemTech, especially the apps, could it be that those apps are emerging in response to a dearth of information or a dearth of research?
That's my question too.
Yeah.
Yes. So the coiner of the term on the Clue website, she explained a little that when she and her company were first like working on getting like funding, for instance, for their app and other products, that she was told that like women's health tech like that was too niche. And so she wanted to kind of really solidify marketing for those kinds of like women's health products to, make it so that it's easier to get funding. And then with, again, the companies themselves are kind of doing research on their own too, through their users, which I find really fascinating too. But I would agree that we're still learning more and more about menstrual cycles, about hormones and their kind of holistic impact on your body and your health. There's a whole lot related to like the female reproductive system that is understudied and not as well understood. So I think that definitely is emerging in response to that to kind of fill those gaps. But I think it also kind of represents just an increasing, I guess, commodification of health and healthcare too, which we see in many contexts where you become, under neoliberal policies and ideologies, more responsible for your own health, and that it's up to the market to provide resources for your health. Yeah, thanks for the question.
I have a question from an online person. Ami Kitada says, thank you for your insightful presentation, ! I read your research on hegemonic menstruality and would like to know what you think about the dominant discourses surrounding FemTech apps. As you mentioned, some of the apps feature discussion boards or are other options to share their menstrual cycles available. I'm curious if this is a new aspect of hegemony.
Well, I think there are some connections. So in my broader research, I, again, as scholars often like to do, coin a new term. What I refer to as hegemonic menstruality, which is the kind of way of menstrual being that is considered like most mainstream and normal and less stigmatized. So in Japan, like concealing menstruation is number one. Use of disposable pads is another big thing, which, as I argue, affects your experience of menstruation in an embodied capacity. Additionally, in Japan in particular, there's a super strong discursive connection between menstruation and like fertility and reproduction, which does seem potentially like common sense or something that's taken for granted, but it doesn't necessarily have to be constructed that way. But I think the apps definitely reflect that in Japan, the menstrual cycle is connected to like reproductive capability, as well as the fact that still there is a dominant public discourse about how women are often expected to be mothers at some point. And in Japan, marriage is a precursor to motherhood. So the kind of emphasis on like basal body temp, on having different like ninkatsu and pregnancy modes shows, again, this emphasis on menstrual cycles and fertility or reproduction. So I think those kind of tie into my arguments related to hegemonic menstruality. And I do want to explore further. I was trying to access the app itself on my phone, but I have to like change my account location to Japan to access it. So I'm still figuring out that tech side of things. I'm not super tech savvy, actually, ironically. So to actually take a look at what people are discussing in the app would be great additional data to further explore those discourses. But yeah, thank you for the question.
I'm going to take a different person first, if there's anybody, please.
Thank you for the talk, and I also have a question about like FemTech and especially about the definition of technology. So because I just wonder like what is technology and what can be seen as technology from this case. So for example, I wonder like do you have a much more clear definition or category of what is technology in your case? So for example, do you see the material used in FemTech as technology, or the presentation of materials as technology, or the process of the advertising industry as a technology? So I just wonder, like, do you land on a specific or a relatively specific field of what technology is? Yeah, thank you.
That's a great question. And I like how you pointed out how there can be kind of layers to it all. Just the fact that we are, accessing the internet to view the websites which have scientific depictions of what are themselves technologies that we use in our everyday lives. I don't have a specific definition of technology on hand, but I think that is what makes like the field of science and technology studies so interesting, is that, you know, technology, what that means to someone can like vary based on individual, on you know, cultural values and beliefs. For instance, Postdoctoral, the scholar who I mentioned towards the beginning of my talk, she makes what is perhaps now a relatively common argument in, say, like feminist scholarship, that technology and science are sort of codified as masculine in a lot of societies.
Sure.
And so that is why perhaps menstrual products are overlooked as belonging to the category of technology. But yeah, technologies can really, it can be a very, very broad term, which has its kind of benefits and drawbacks. But I'm still kind of working on, you know, perhaps to kind of shore up my argument, I can provide more specific characteristics of technology to kind of strengthen my argument about, you know, menstrual products and other things that should be considered technology.
Right.
Yeah, so thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you. Another question online. John Campbell asks, what could you say in a minute or two about how Japan is different from other countries or the U.S.?
Oh, well, that would just have to be based on, you know, anecdotal experience and evidence. But I think if we're looking at apps, was the question about the apps in general or just about?
In a minute or two.
Okay.
Compare and contrast.
Okay, so when it comes to products, tampons are much more popular in, say, the US rather than Japan, as I mentioned previously. This is in part due to perhaps things related to sex education and ideas of female sexuality, a sort of hesitance to touch one's genitals and menstrual blood, which I connect to, you know, beliefs, values, and practices related to menstruation in Japan. And let's see, smell is something that came up in advertising that I didn't see as much in the US, although that might have changed over the past few years. So scented products are more common in Japan, and not just scented versus unscented, but there might be like 6 different scents to choose from, or fragrances as they call them.
Fragrances,
With apps, there would be quite a lot of commonalities. Like I think nowadays a lot of menstrual cycle tracking apps across the board have like a pregnancy mode as well as other things. But as I briefly mentioned at the beginning, I think other like UK or Europe-based or US-based are shifting towards like more inclusive terminology of different, you know, genders and life paths. Maybe looking at folks who don't have periods but might still have cycles. So whether that's people at different life stages or people who are using like low-dose contraceptive pills, which is not as common in Japan for a variety of historical reasons as well. So I guess my minute or two is probably up.
I have a question. So I'm thinking of natural ideas in Japan about being natural.
Yes.
I don't want to take pills. I don't want to take, you know, pills when I'm pregnant. I need things to be natural. I need natural foods. I need good sleep. I need baths. In contrast to FemTech. So anything you want to say about this sort of tension between and that's why to read those, if you could get access to what people are talking about, that would be amazing. But anything about that tension between that natural on the one side and tech on the other?
Absolutely. So going back to even like the 80s and 90s, Margaret Locke, who's a medical anthropologist of Japan, talks about how, what is natural is seen as, you know, good and positive, and rather than scientific interventions in the body, which is viewed as potentially like negative or harmful, unnatural. So there is that sort of tension, and you might also think of potential like tension and or mixing of biomedicine and like kampo and other traditional health practices in Japan. That's used to, like, because I had interviewees, one with an irregular cycle, you know, she tried the pill. She also tried acupuncture and kampo to help with her cycles. So you see people interacting with different like medical and healing systems, which is interesting. But I think just the fact, Sandberg, as I mentioned as well, that folks don't really like necessarily to use the birth control pill as contraception. So there's condoms, and then there's like the rhythm method or withdrawal method, which might be considered like natural contraceptive methods that don't use like any products at all or medications. But there is a general tendency to not want to be like dependent on medication.
But then
in Japan.
medicalizing menstruation in a way. Do you know what I'm saying? Or technologicalizing, like you said, hegemony.
Yeah,
but so it's just a weird.
There are some interesting juxtapositions. Like, you want to be maybe like natural, but you're using an app to to be analyze and track your cycle.
So cool.
One example advertisement on La Lune's website was for a supplement that was said to have good, impact on those who are trying to conceive. So the whole supplement industry itself is a kind of interesting paradox of natural and scientific as well.
Right. I don't know if we have time for one more question. Anybody else beside? Okay, go ahead, please.
My question, I guess it's partially two parts. One is kind of related to what Mary asked earlier about sort of kind of thinking broad, like about how things are technologized or explained in a scientific way within FemTech, because I'm curious about the comparison between, say, period products versus like pads versus like period pain products and their ads, because I feel like those seem to be more like magical, where you just take the pill and it's all gone, and the sun is bright, and there's like very little explanation of how pain medication actually works. So I'm kind of curious about even within kind of this category, like how they differ and like possibly why, right?
So thank you. So I want to make sure she gets the chance because we're almost done. So please just at least respond to that part.
All right, period pain products. Yeah, so there's over-the-counter analgesics that you can take, similar to in the US. Like there's a Japanese version of Midol, but you can also take like Tylenol or ibuprofen versions. But yeah, I, in the past, not recently, have looked at advertising for it. And also with Sarah in the back there, also have taken a look at PMS in Japan, including an over-the-counter medication meant to treat PMS, which is a whole Pandora's box of its own. But Sophie, the brand, the menstrual product brand, also has menstrual cycle tracking apps. Yeah, multiple apps. They have one geared towards like teens or adolescents. They have one kind of simple standard one, and then they have one called Sophie B, which is meant to focus on like PMS and moods and those kinds of things beyond just like bleeding and ovulation. So again, getting access to those apps and its details will help kind of illuminate how those things are like understood and learned, and what information is, collected, shared, distributed. But yeah, it'd be good to again kind of expand the umbrella towards other period-related products beyond, pads, whether it's pain relief products or medications and things like that. So thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you. So we have only 1/2 of a minute left. Do you have a 2-second question? Mary?
Oh, no.
Oh, good?
Oh, actually, yes.
Okay.
So I want to just mention that tracking it goes way back before things that are now considered science and technology.
Yes.
Sure.
So when you're using the app, I see these things as not inconsistent.
That's
because
right. That's right. Diaries is a big.
If you're using the rhythm method, like it's not using all of that other stuff. And
Exactly.
it's just that it's being put. It's just that the coders are translating something analog into a like digital media.
Absolutely.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and some of those companies, they had like cute little basal body temp charts that you can print out and use yourself. So again, the more just like tangible. Or, you know, even me, like my mom taught me to like mark on my wall calendar in my room my period, and some of my interviewees did that as well. Some didn't really like keep track at all because they're like, well, you know, I'm not dating or I'm not sexually active or trying to have a baby, so I don't really see a point in tracking it if it's roughly regular anyways.
Perfect. Thank you. Welcome again.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your questions. I appreciate it.